and then I will be able to download this when the meeting ends, and I will upload it to Google Drive so that it is easily shareable. And Kristen will put it on the website.
Okay, one housekeeping question, Robert. Do you have a list of the candidates in the order that they showed up?
Well, I mean, I'm assuming that we're all looking, if you look in gallery view, we're always seeing the same thing. And so, I mean, you know, that's going to become our default left-right order tonight.
Yeah, but
So
does that stay the same?
It has been
like
to
it's
me,
been
yeah.
jumping around.
Right. I haven't seen anybody move. I mean, people have been arriving in order, and that's kind of what it's going to end up.
Lisa was first, and
yeah, Letty was second, and then Pat. So I mean, you know, that's that. So we had said that we would do the opening statements in that order, and the closing statements in the reverse order.
All right.
All right. So you'll get a minute 30 for opening, a minute for closing.
Okay, I'd like to welcome everyone to our.
Oh, so David, we are not broadcasting yet. So
we're not broadcasting yet?
Nope. We're about to be though. Okay. Now we are broadcasting to all attendees, and attendees are coming in. So we'll kind of wait for everybody to file in. We'll wait a couple more minutes as Zoom allows everybody in.
Okay, then give me a heads up when I should start.
I sure will. And just a heads up to everyone. Everybody who is joining now can see us. So, you know, just know that you're visible. Sometimes we forget that, and I know I have to watch it. Great. We have 39 folks who have joined us so far, which is spectacular. It is good to see you all. Good to be here together this evening. We're just going to give it about 1 more minute, and I will kind of go over Q&A and other features that you may need during this time, and then I will turn it over to the capable Robert and David, who will be running this meeting for us this evening.
And if you want to tell everybody who you are too, that's good.
Right. So as you see on my screen, I am Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association. But that is not my real name. My real name is Sam Blewis. I am here in downtown Mountain View, where I get to live, which is what a gift. I am lucky enough to be a pastor of a church here in downtown. I'm starting a new church, which means that Los Altos United Methodist Church owns the home I live in, and so I get the gift of living in downtown Mountain View, and that is such a joy. And so we thought, you know, what in the world are we going to do with a 4-bedroom house and just me and my wife? So we have 3 foster children because we decided we should not have any empty rooms here in downtown Mountain View. And so that is who I am, and it is a joy to be with you all. We are going to get started. Just so you know, the candidates will each have 1.5 minutes to give opening statements, and then I'll turn it over to Robert and David, who will ask questions that were submitted. If you have a question, you can drop that into the Q&A, and I will be able to get those to Robert and David. I'll also be keeping time in an incredibly sophisticated manner. I'm going to use my phone and hold it up to the screen. So try to ignore that if you find it distracting. I'll put myself on mute so that you shouldn't be able to, you shouldn't have to look at that too much. And I think that is it. Does any of the panelists have any questions?
I just have a request. If one of us starts to answer a question and our unmute hasn't worked, will somebody please let us know before the question's over? That happened last time and it was very embarrassing. So I don't know, hold your ears up or whatever to let us know that our mute hasn't worked properly. Thanks.
We will definitely be sure to let you know. You know, I I was feeling very self-righteous about taking my mute off, but it turns out I too can forget that my mute's on. So everybody is susceptible to that. So yeah, we'll make sure that happens. If you have your mute on, we will let you know. And Robert and David, I'm flying by the seat of my pants here, but I'm going to say their time can start when their mute comes off. I'm just making things up now, but.
Okay.
All right.
Works for
Well,
me.
if you have any questions, those who are in attendance, you can use the Q&A to send me a question, or you could also send me a chat, and that should be available to you. So without further ado, Robert and David, it's all yours.
All right, Robert, I should proceed here.
Yes, go ahead, David.
Okay.
Introduce yourself and me.
Okay, so I'll start off here. I'm David Lewis. I'm the chair of the Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association, and we have Robert Cox, who's helping out with the questions, who's the vice chair, and Samantha Blewis is taking over as the timer and web mistress, whatever it's called, in charge of knowing everything about Zoom. The rest of us don't know a whole lot. What we're going to have here is, first of all, opening statements by the candidates. Then I'm going to have one question that came from the steering committee of OMVNA. Then Robert's going to go through a bunch of random questions from the grab bag of questions submitted from people. And then another question from the steering council, and then more grab bag questions. In the case of the grab bag, you have candidates, you can answer a question, that another candidate will get to either rebut your comments or answer another question. Up to you. And we get done, if we still have time, Robert has some more questions, perhaps, that we can go through. Any questions? Okay, I think everything is good here. So in that case, the next thing is we're going to start with opening statements in the order in which people showed up for the meeting. So I think the first one was Lisa. Is that correct? Okay, so Lisa, you're first, and then we'll go Lisa, Lenny, who do I have next? Hard to say.
Pat.
Pat. Okay, well,
Oh,
Sam can keep me on track here. So we're going to start with now 1.5 minutes for an opening statement from Lisa.
Thank you. I'm Lisa Matichak, and I appreciate you holding this forum tonight. I don't know what the topics are going to be, so if we don't get questions about topics that are of interest to you, please do reach out so I can respond to your questions. The next 4 years are starting with challenges due to the pandemic. It's going to take time and effort to recover. I'm very proud of what the city has done so far. The city employees have been phenomenal in working through all of the issues in order to help our city stay open for business. But we need to continue to help our residents and our small businesses get through this very difficult time. We need people with experience on the council to help manage our recovery. We need to keep our sustainability plan on track, as the time is now to reduce our carbon emissions. I was recently asked which budget items would I protect. Sustainability is one of them. There are a lot of projects in the works around the city, around transportation, housing, sea level rise, to name a few. But really right now, recovery from the pandemic is top priority. What's also important is retooling some of the city's operations in order to have the city prepare for the new normal. I'm really looking forward to our discussion tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. The next, I think, is Lenny.
Hi. Since March, I've heard from people all over the country, friends, family, colleagues, They ask how I'm doing, and I say, I'm kind of like in the eye of a hurricane. You know, the national politics are crazy. We've got these wildfires in the rural areas of California, and the pandemic is really difficult on people in many parts of the country. And here I am with my wife walking around Old Mountain View at night, keeping distance from people, walking in the streets, smelling the flowers, talking to the cats, and wondering why houses are so expensive. And it's like, this isn't the world for everybody. We're very fortunate to live in Old Mountain View, but a lot of people are really hurting. Our kids can't afford to live here. Teachers can't afford to. How about the people who are working in the restaurants where we're doing mostly takeout from? So even though some of us are very comfortable, you know, we bought our houses a long time ago when they cost 1/25 of what they do now. We've got real problems here. And my job on the city council is to serve everybody, a community, the entire community, not just those of us who could afford to buy homes in Old Mountain View in the past. Thank you very much for having us tonight.
Okay, thank you, Lenny. I think next is Pat Showalter.
Hi, everybody. I'm Pat Showalter. Thanks so much for having us tonight. It's good to have this, to be able to have this discussion. I used to enjoy attending your ice cream socials in person when I was on council. And one of the things that, it was one of the things that inspired me to found a neighborhood association where I live, the Cooper Park Neighborhood Association. Times are uncertain. So we need to elect people that we can count on. I've been active in Mountain View for 36 years. I volunteered extensively while my kids went through the public schools. I served for 9 years on the EPC and for 4 years on council. I'm known for championing housing and the environment and for treating people with respect. I used to talk a lot about the perils of prosperity, which are not enough housing and too much traffic. And those are still certainly really important. But right now we need to focus on getting through the pandemic and eliminating systemic racism. I'm proud of the accomplishments that were made while I was on council. You'll hear a lot about them tonight, I think, as we talk. And I just want to mention, I'm a civil engineer, so by profession, my skill set applies directly to the infrastructure and environmental decisions that often come before council. I still work on affordable housing and climate protection by serving on the Alta Housing Board and the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. I think next we have, I think it's Margaret. Let me just make sure. Oh, Jose. I guess it's Jose. Okay, Jose, you're on.
All right, thank you very much. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. I also want to wish Susan Beckford a quick recovery. We got news that she had to forego participating tonight because of health reasons, and I hope she does well and she comes back stronger than ever. I am Jose Gutierrez Jr. I am a member of the Mountain View Wisconsin School Board of Trustees. I was appointed back in 2015 out of a field of 11 candidates, and in 2016 ran a successful campaign to be on a 4-year term with the board. At that time, previous to what we had, the school board was dysfunctional, but now we are a team, and I believe in that team concept. I like to be able to agree to disagree. I believe that difference of opinion is not really confrontational, but rather an opportunity to be able to make change. And to do that and to continue that policymaking abilities that we've been able to do at the school board, I believe it's a transferable skill set that I could bring to city council. Now more than ever, I think we need to work like a team. We need to act like the representatives that we are for the betterment of the city and represent the interests of everyone within Mountain View, because we're all in this together. Now more so than ever, we should realize that the ability to work functionally as a team is important on city council or on a school board. And as a consensus builder, I like to believe that some of the accomplishments we've had in partnerships within the school district and city council or developers or with Google to bridge the digital divide or provide teacher housing have been good examples of what partnerships can do and what consensus building can lead to. So I look forward to tonight's discussion. I appreciate everyone's time and help. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Jose. I think next is John Lashley. Minute and a half.
Thank you, David. My name is John Lashley. I'm a proud renter, data scientist, and activist in Mountain View. First, we're all wishing the best to Susan Bickford tonight, and thank you to Reverend Sam for being here. Thank you to the Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association for holding this forum. In Mountain View, we're very fortunate to have this as well as other neighborhood associations. Right now, during the pandemic, more than ever, we need neighbor-to-neighbor solidarity, mutual aid, and support. The pandemic has created pressure on our abilities to work, pay our rent or mortgage, buy our groceries and medicine, and more. Now we have to be deliberative about how we protect our neighborhoods and neighbors during this difficult time. We must expand our rent and mortgage relief program to keep all residents safe from eviction. We must solve our racially biased police arrest record, where our Black and Latinx neighbors are much more likely to be arrested than other neighbors. We must expand our critical renter protections and rapidly build more housing, especially in our East Wisman and North Bayshore areas. I'm campaigning to do this and more. We need candidates running on inclusive, progressive, and bold platforms like mine. Mountain View is a wonderful place to live and work. I'm running to help make it even more inclusive and better. I hope to win your support tonight with my platform, honesty, and conviction. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Next, we have Margaret, who is ready, I think.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Margaret Abe Koga, and I'm a proud resident of Old Mountain View, where my husband and I are raising 2 daughters and took care of my parents in their twilight of their years. I've also been on the OMVNA board. It's been a while back, but served as vice chair. And I've had the honor of serving on the Mountain View City Council for 12 years and as mayor this year. During the pandemic, nationwide civil unrest, and wildfires, I've worked hard as mayor to successfully respond to our community's concerns and needs. Working together with my colleagues, staff, other public, private, and nonprofit partners, I led the city to establish the largest rent relief program in the county, a small business resiliency program, open safe parking lots for vehicle dwellers, enhanced food, hygiene, and safety assistance for homeless and low-income families, brought COVID testing to Mountain View, opened Castro streets, outdoor dining, and fostered community dialogue around diversity while working to ensure equitable and inclusive city service delivery. We also just last week received the great news that we received a $12 million Project Home Key state grant to build a 100-room transitional housing project for the homeless. We now need to work together to rebuild our community. As mayor in 2009, I led the city out of the Great Recession and helped develop Mountain View to be the great place it is by implementing innovative approaches to addressing housing, transportation, and climate change. My leadership experience, relationships, and know-how to get things done makes me the right person to continue to serve on the city council at this critical time to get us through the pandemic, weather the recession, and rebuild our community. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Margaret. Next we have, let's see. I've got to get to we've lost everyone here.
I think it's Paul.
I think it's Paul. I've lost it's you jumped in there, I think. Paul, Paul, you're next.
Well, thank you. I'll let our timer get set there. As everyone is well aware and has been mentioned already, we're in very unusual times with lots of challenges between heat waves, earthquakes in the East Bay, national political tumult. You know, this period has some real challenges, but it also presents great opportunities. We could have the opportunity through all this transition period to build a better community. But to seize that opportunity, to seize that chance to build a better community, we're going to have to perform much better as a city. Things are going to have to move faster. We're going to have to be more competent. We're going to have to use our resources better. As a college student at Purdue University, I was elected to the West Lafayette, Indiana City Council. During my time there, I saw how a city could move much faster than Mountain View moves today. I saw how that we could build diverse constituencies and produce great results. I saw how we could build great housing projects that everyone was very proud of. Since my time on that council, I worked as a software engineer at the New York Times, Google, and now OMVNA. And, you know, I've seen a council that just moves too slow today. And so hopefully we can talk about this through a large number of issues, but thank you for spending your evening with us. It's, you know, individuals that spend their evening talking about, thinking about these issues that really make our community a wonderful place to live. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. almost the last, but next is Sally Lieber.
Well, thank you so much. And I loved hearing everyone's answers. And Margaret, I could really feel what you were saying, because I too used to be vice chair of the Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association. And at that time, Pat, we had to all keep the ice cream in our refrigerators because we had Martin Karinga making the ice cream by hand. And then we all had to try to freeze it in time. So a lot of great memories around our neighborhood, and I'm very thankful for everyone who's checked in as an attendee tonight. And I see a lot of the community leaders from our area there. I have also been an alumni of council. I served on council and as mayor, and then went on to 3 terms in the state assembly. And I have a really strong love for Mountain View. I thought that we had been here for 24 years, but my husband tells me it's actually been 27 years, which is just amazing to me. But it's really a community that I love. And I see the challenges that we're having and the hard time that many of our neighbors are having right now. So tops on my list are pandemic recovery, including the small business recovery, keeping sustainability strong, slowing gentrification and disappearing affordable housing, and making sure that we have opportunities for kids, families, and seniors. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Sally. The last, not least, I would assume, but the last is Alec Nunez. So you've got your minute and a half.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks a lot again for being here. My name is Alex Nunez, and I'm running for the Mountain View City Council because it is my deeply held belief that it is the fundamental responsibility of city government and city leadership to always fight for the well-being of all residents ahead of any other interests. I have worked to embody this belief and these values over many years now in our city, fighting against the displacement of our low-income, senior, and chronically ill residents, fighting for rent control to give our teachers, mechanics, grocery store workers a fighting chance to stay in our community, and for greater housing production. I've also fought for increased quality of life and good neighborhoods by being a member of your neighboring neighborhood association out here in Shoreline West in our steering committee, and making sure that we have great, vibrant neighborhood interactions as well. I not only dedicate myself to public service because of my values, but also because as a young person who is not only recently married and hoping to start a family soon, but also as a representative of our millennial and Gen Z generation, which is the bulk of the human population, I can very much not only see and understand, but feel how our futures are literally almost on the front lines of our multifaceted economic, environmental, and social crises. I believe it is time that we elevate new leadership now, not later, to fight against these most critical challenges. And as your city council, that's what I pledge to do. So thank you. I hope to earn your vote.
Thank you, Alex. Everyone is, we'll let Sam, you got your timer organized now for the next round? Okay, the next round of questions and answers is 1 minute each. So you lost 30 seconds here. Okay, we're gonna start with a question from the steering committee. And it goes as follows. And we're going to go the same order we had before. So going to start with, I'm not sure how that's going to work here. We're going to start with Lisa again. So this question is, what should the city of Mountain View do to support our Castro Street businesses during the pandemic and afterwards, when we might well have a very different economy? So that's the question. What are we going to do now with the pandemic? And once it's done and things might have changed, how are we going to deal with that? So we'll start with Lisa on that.
So the city has been working with the Chamber of Commerce and the other businesses in downtown to respond to the ever-changing health orders that allow various forms of operation. We have recently discussed what we can do both short-term and long-term for our small businesses, including the ones on Castro. at a council meeting. I think that was last week. And short term, our small businesses wanted help to expand their customer base. So we are working with the chamber on a website to allow them to do transactions online. Most of them were not used to doing that, but this will enable that, all of them to do transactions online. And it's not limited to the small businesses downtown, it's businesses throughout the city. There was a laundry list. We're going to continue to look at doing grants instead of low interest loans. And long term, there's a big list too that I can't get to because I'm out of time.
Okay, thank you. Next is Lenny, same question.
So, I've been advocating converting Castro Street to a pedestrian mall for years, and it's great that the city's doing that now. One of the things we have to figure out, maybe they're probably already working on it, is heaters. As it gets colder, we'll still be restricted on indoor dining, so we have to take care of that. But the problem for non-restaurant businesses has to do with the fact that they can't compete with Amazon and they can't pay the downtown Mountain View rent. I had an office in Mountain View for 40 years before we moved out. And we need to require that the building owners make sure that the bottom floor is available for retail, even if they have to subsidize it. That will help. It's not a total solution. The national economy is changing, and we can't solve that just here in Mountain View.
Okay, thank you, Lenny. Next is Pat Showalter, same question. Pat, you there?
It says she should ask to unmute.
Unmute. Okay, am I unmuted?
You're good now.
Hang on just a moment, Pat. Let me make it so that you can share your video. Okay.
Okay, sorry.
That's
I
okay.
touched the screen to unmute and it did other things. Okay, well, building on what has been said, I thought that the study that the city had done for the small businesses was really brilliant. The consultant came up with some really good things. Expanding the customer base was very important. We really need to encourage all of the community to use the small businesses. In addition to that, I think the city needs to use the small businesses. We need to have a policy to buy local whenever possible, even if it may cost a little bit more money. We need to have one-stop assistance at City Hall. We're going to have a small office of people that just work with small business people so that when a small businessman comes to City Hall, they can get questions answered all over the city government, not just at that location. The pedestrian mall is a great idea. I think we're all going to love it. This is functioning as a pilot project for how we can do this properly. And I think we may also want to have some pop-ups long term.
Okay. Thank you, Pat. Next, we have Jose.
All right, thank you, Robert. So just FYI, everyone, my video sometimes it freezes. So I don't know if you all are having the same experience as I am, but sometimes you all freeze up on me and I can't catch up. So here I go. I like the ideas that we've heard so far, and I think we're all in agreement that we would like to see Castro Street be converted into a pedestrian avenue so that we can have this momentum of community building and also growth in small businesses continue. I'd also like to see, as it's been mentioned before by a few of us as well, thinking about having the farmers market also be extended to that area on the weekends as well. I like the approach that City Council had made at the last meeting. I'd like idea number 2, where you would have a center directed exclusively by someone with experience in helping small businesses prosper and grow in Mountain View, but also act as that one-stop shopping center where any and all questions could be answered whenever these types of folks could come by and seek help. So I think these are the great basis of being able to continue towards something great, and we're on the right path.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. Next, John Lashley.
Thanks, David. I agree with a lot of what's been said, and what I'd like to add is that the best thing we can do to build a strong, healthy foundation in our city to make our small businesses thrive is to make sure they have a healthy, well-educated, and well-compensated workforce and customer base. So the way we can do that first is by reaching out to our small businesses and our employers of our essential workers to make sure that they have protective equipment and to make sure their needs are being met. We can explore the creation of hazard pay for our essential workers. And for our small businesses in particular, I favor an all of the above strategy, which means grants, loans, or investment, meeting their needs to stay in business. And when it is time to reopen up, when we're safe from the pandemic, we need to do that in a deliberative way that has plenty of room for public hearing in the best way that our residents and small businesses want to make use of land, such as the reopening of Castro Street.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Margaret Abekoga.
Thank you. So the benefit of being in the middle of the answering is that a lot has already been said. So I would just echo what's been said about our small business support. When we went into sheltering in place, immediately I started receiving emails and calls from our small businesses and a lot from downtown. So I've been speaking with our businesses, our Downtown Business Association, our Chamber of Commerce, and that's what led to the Small Business Resiliency Program. Google had given us a community grant, and I asked them if we could allocate some of those funds for this program. And yes, they were loans to allow flexibility on how those monies could be used, but we have heard grants would be helpful, so we're looking at that. We have the Small Business Action Plan that we just talked about, and outdoor dining. Yes, we are looking at how to do that in inclement weather. That's coming. Longer term, I'd like to look at how we can streamline processes, and we have some old regulations and permitting that we need to look at and allow for more flexibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Next, we have Paul Riley. There you are.
Thank you. Of course, I agree with a lot of the programs that have been mentioned, but what's important to remember is that the size of our response is very important. And so having a program that is much too small in comparison to the need in our community is just not useful. And so often there's a laundry list of programs that are being undertaken, but the amount of resources behind them is order of magnitude or two too small, and they're taking way, way too long to get implemented. And so, for example, I would point out the Castro program of closing down Castro. It took a number of weeks after that was allowed. Our businesses struggled without that business for a number of weeks because the city was slow to respond. And so we need to make sure that whatever we do, that we're appropriately sizing the response to the problem in our community, and that we're executing on it quickly so that we can actually help businesses in a timely way. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. Next, Sally Lieber.
Thank you. Well, so many things I've heard that I really agree with wholeheartedly. And it strikes me that one of the things that really makes life hard for our small businesses is finding workers that live here. Even during these pandemic times, it is really difficult, and businesses are losing workers to the Central Valley and to other places, or to the necessity of vehicle dwelling. And I think we need to have compassion in this economy for folks who are forced into that situation. I agree with the others who have mentioned the need to really look at the long term for how we're going to have events and shopping and et cetera taking place in the downtown. I don't think that COVID is going away, unfortunately, anytime soon. So we have to weave those public health strategies into really marketing our downtown and their activities.
Okay, thank you, Sally. Last, Alex Nunez.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. So with regards to the downtown, I see it as, you know, the short to mid term, as well as in the longer term sustainability actions. With regards to the short term, we did, I'm sure many of us heard of that struggle that Flights, that corner business had with their landlord, where the landlord was calling the rent despite the shelter in place, taking all the customer base away. Very much like our residents impacted by COVID, I think it's important for us to make sure that we disallow eviction as a civil remedy for the non-payment of rent and amortize it over a period of time so that everybody gets something, but nobody loses everything. Furthermore, I agree with the permanent closure. I think that's something we need to really study hard. In order to refill our vacant spots, we need to have a leadership program similar to our civic leadership program for entrepreneurial engagement in the downtown. And with regards to the long term, I believe that we really need to make sure that we look at helping our small businesses with the split road property tax in case it passes. Triple net leases are something that I feel very strongly are terrible, and I would like to help out with that.
Okay, thank you, Alex. I think we're done with that question. I'm now going to turn this over to Robert Cox, who is picking questions out of a hat in a virtual way, I guess. And you'll, in the same order I think we went through before, you'll get a chance to answer random questions. So Robert, if you could take over.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay, good. So just to let you know that we have a series of 30 questions here. We may not get to all of them, but they were given to us, by the call that we made out to the neighborhood. And David Lewis went through and he gave me a list of random numbers from 1 to 30, and they've been sorted in that order. So I don't know what question you're going to get, and I'm not picking the question for you. You're going to get what's in the list, and you're going to decide based on whether you pass or take the previous question. So this is going to be interesting. So if you didn't get the question that you liked, don't blame me. Anyway, the first question I guess is going to go to Lisa. It's, do you believe that Mountain View's requirement of 15% affordable housing in new developments is too high, too low, or just right?
Well, we updated that ordinance, let's see, for rental units, I think 2 years ago, and for ownership units last year. And it seems like we're still seeing housing being produced. So I wouldn't say it's too high. I would say we should see how it plays out a little bit before we tweak it. But the good thing about it is we require the units to be built rather than pay an in lieu fee. So I'd say right now, I'm thinking it's just about right. Although I will add, we do have incentives in some areas where there should be substantial housing built. We have incentives to make it 20%. So let's see how it goes. We can always tweak it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. And we'll go to Lenny next. Do you want that question or a different one?
Take the next one, because I agree with her.
Okay. The second question is, tell us about a landlord you have met who sets a good example for others in the profession.
Well, back in the 70s, I managed apartments on Mountain View Avenue, and my first landlord was a guy named Robert Huggins, and he basically didn't raise the rent very much on people, and he held on to their tenants. And I thought he set a good example. But he sold it to a guy named Hodgson, who said, well, if you don't like the rent, go someplace else. So we've had both in Mountain View. We have a number of small landlords that my next door neighbor, for example, that keep the rent low to hold on to their tenants. That's a good strategy. And he apologized that he had to raise the rent because of rent control so he could keep up. Well, I understood that. So we got plenty of good small landlords, but we basically, when I first met Prometheus, when I was on the council, they said, well, if you want to sell your house, you're going to get the maximum you can out of it. So we're going to charge what we can, because that's the way we do business. And so we've got both kinds.
Okay. We'll move on to Jose next. Jose, do you want that question or another one? Can you hear me, Jose?
Here we go.
Anybody
I got you
hear
now.
me?
Okay. I hear you now, Robert. Let's take. You froze on me.
Oh, okay, you froze on me too.
Okay.
Okay, do you want this question or another one?
No, we'll do another question.
Okay. The next question is, what is the most important thing you have done politically or personally to support our climate and the natural environment?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the first part?
What is the most important thing that you have done politically or personally to support our climate and the natural environment?
Oh, got it. Okay. Well, there's two things here. I think one, as a member of the Mountain View Wisconsin School Board, we deal with education on a daily basis, obviously, right? And we're trying to make an impact in the future of how we look at climate change or academic freedom. And with that, we've got a program where we incorporate Living Classroom, which helps us to teach then the importance of the climate as we see it now, but the contributions that Mother Earth has had in our development as human beings and how we can take advantage of this either in a good way or a bad way. And right now we're looking at the consequences of an overreach and irresponsibility, I think, and how we treat Earth. But the flip side to all this is that we're becoming aware and our children are becoming more understanding of what it is that we can do to positively impact the future of our community and of our health and in our environment. But having said that, I think the one of the most important things that we have in a school district is that ability to convey not just the importance of the environment, but what it is that you can do to improve your situation around yourself with the economy as well, such as in our case right now, we're thinking about solar panels.
Sorry about that, Jose.
Jose, you went over, so we have to cut you off. Okay, Mr. Lashley, do you want that question or another one?
You skipped me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, we can go back to you. Sorry, it's just that the things shuffled around on the screen and I was just going in order. Okay, so we'll go back to you, Pat.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat, do you want this one or a different one?
I'd like this one. This is a good one for
Okay.
me. I've devoted my career to environmental engineering. So over the years, I've worked on project after project to protect the environment. The last 20 years, I've really focused on the protection of San Francisco Bay and steelhead streams. Right now, I serve on the San Francisco Bay Conservation and Development Commission, and we are leading the charge on planning for sea level rise protection for the Bay Area region. And one thing I've worked on there that I'm really proud of is developing environmental justice principles. In the last 3 years, we've worked with the environmental justice community to develop principles for the agency. And I'm really proud of that. And it's turned out to be so timely with all of the racial issues that have been raised this spring. Environmental justice directly applies to that. So this is a area I feel passionate about.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Now we're going to go to another question, and it's Mr. Lashley. Okay, 4 years from now, what do you hope will be the single most important accomplishment of your term on council?
Thank you. First, let me say that I appreciate the enthusiasm of 30 questions, and as a data scientist, I appreciate the extensive randomization as well. But this question is very fun and appropriate, so I'm happy to take it. After 4 years on the city council, I think everyone in the world hopes to look back on this pandemic and hope to fully put it behind us. And that's a very solemn thing that we're all taking very seriously. I hope that my contribution to having a just pandemic recovery and creating Mountain View and recreating it as a great place to live will be to expand our rent and mortgage relief program, like I've said, to keep our small businesses in place, to pay our essential workers hazard pay, to make sure they have the protective equipment, and get through this in a way where we have the maximum quality of life for the residents of Mountain View.
Thank you. Now to Margaret Abe-Koga. Did you want that question or a different one?
Take that one.
Okay.
Thank you. So definitely, I hope 4 years from now, we will have recovered from this pandemic and with fiscally sound budgets, because that's what we need to continue to maintain our city services and continue with all of the projects that we have in queue. But what I would really like to see is that we make real big, bold progress in terms of combating climate change. And it ties to the question earlier, but I've been a part of the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Board. Actually was helped started it by making sure we had seed money when the feasibility study first came about. And that was the community that came forward and asked us to do that. And so that was my last year of my second term. And then when I returned, I have been on the board. I chaired the board last year, and we engaged in the adoption of REACH codes. So we are on our way to decarbonizing buildings. The next area that I'd like to work on is transportation. Thank you.
All right, now we'll go over to Paul and with a new question. Under what conditions would you support revisiting the city's current rules on cannabis?
You got cut off, but.
You want me to read it again?
Sure.
Under what conditions would you support revisiting the city's current rules on cannabis business?
Yeah, I mean, I think in this area and, you know, in the area of the CSFRA and many areas, once we've had good policy established and once we've had a thoughtful process that's gone into policymaking, I think we need to give it some time to see the effects of it. And so these cannabis rules are very new to our city, and certainly there's been a lot of disruption in the meantime. And so I'm a proponent of, there's a huge number of issues we need to address on council. We've had some good rulemaking in this area and some other areas. And so we need to see how that plays out for a while, on the order of magnitude of a few years. You know, continuously tinkering with policy, you know, can be good, but, you know, you got to see how it plays out, and you got to see how it works for our community before we revisit it. So, thank you.
Sally Lieber, do you want the same question or a different one?
I'll go for a new one so we get more questions.
Okay. Let's see. In the 4 years since the city passed a residential parking permit program, not a single residential parking zone has been established. Should the city redo its residential parking permit program? If so, how?
Well, I think in consultation with the neighborhoods, obviously Old Mountain View and certain areas of Swan are the most impacted by this. And I think in consultation with the neighborhoods, as we think about building up the downtown, and we talked about the need to, you know, support the businesses there. I think one thing that will really help our businesses in the downtown is to have additional housing. And additional housing or additional commercial activity means more pressure on parking. And so I think we have to be in conversation with the neighborhood and the neighborhood association to see what's the right way to make that work for the quality of life for folks in the neighborhood.
And Alex, do you want that question or a different one?
Yeah, I'll take a stab at that one. Cool. So yeah, I live here on Shoreline West. I think that the reason that a lot more people don't park here when they go to downtown is because of the shoreline being so big. That's a whole different issue though. But yeah, I definitely believe we need to look at the residential parking program again, for the reason that, yes, I am a believer that COVID will pass, growth will resume, and we're gonna get into, you know, a re-spurt of this issue with a lot of the people in the commercial offices actually parking all around the downtown. If you actually go midday, you know, like the new Sobrato building, if you go into the actual parking garage, while everyone is parked, while all the people who work there are parked in the residential streets because there's nice trees and sun and air, there's a ton of empty parking spaces in that garage. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that we enforce our traffic demand management agreements with these, with the owners of these buildings, so that those parking lots are full and that they stay off the residential streets, which are for residents to park on.
That's our first grab bag round. Now back to David.
Okay. We're going to go in reverse order now, which means Alex is going to go first. Okay, and the question here is, what is your long-term vision for Castro Street and the surrounding neighborhoods, and the effect of a loss of local control on zoning and development? This assumes that the state's going to go on doing stuff as they are now. So long-term vision for Castro Street and the surrounding area and the effect of a loss of local control over zoning and development. Okay, Alex, you're first.
Yeah, so with regards to my vision for Castro Street, definitely I want to limit commercial growth in our downtown. I agree with Lenny. I think we need more housing. I think we need to enforce, as I mentioned earlier, our traffic demand management. And quite frankly, Paul is great, but I don't think we want a downtown that is basically a commercial park. At least I know I don't want to. So that's my vision. Making sure that we do ground floor retail all over. The cafeterias at the old 23andMe site are nice for the employees, but it's a loss for the rest of the community who can't use that space. With regards to the effect of a loss of local control, I'll just emphasize that right now, there is no SB 50 that was passed. We still have plenty of local control. But I believe that we need to make sure that we facilitate state efforts to produce more housing, but do it in a way that doesn't punish cities like Mountain View who are actually doing the right thing and producing more housing. I would fight for local control for cities like us, but make sure that state efforts to take it away from bad actors actually go through.
Thank you, Alex. Next, we have Sally Lieber.
Well, we've won many awards, and we're known actually worldwide for the design of our downtown and the scale of our downtown. And a lot of thought went into the geometry of how to have a good feeling in our downtown to be able to attract people. And so I think that we have to really preserve that. We do need redevelopment of many of the areas of El Camino. There are many areas of El Camino where properties could be consolidated through development and have designs that are cohesive with the neighborhoods, but maybe put our best foot forward in a slightly different way. And I think that we have to put a lot of thought into stitching together Castro Street with Moffett. We have a lot of great possibilities with Moffett Boulevard. In terms of the Adobe building and the adult school and some of the new housing that's going in there. And
okay, I think we've running out of time here. We have a tough timer there, sorry. Okay, next.
I did give it about 10 seconds.
Thank you.
Yeah. Same question, Paul Riley's.
Right. Can you repeat the question? Is it?
Okay, it's what is your long-term vision for Castro Street and the surrounding neighborhoods? And what do you think about the effect of a possible loss of local control over development and zoning?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of the state pulling control away from Mountain View. And we have a very special, unique community here. So I think we need to continue to develop the amount of available square footage for retail businesses in downtown, for commercial office space in downtown. And, in the periphery of that, we need to look at what we can do to add housing to that area as well. And so it sounds like all the above, but, the trick is, and the real challenge is preserving our neighborhood character there and preserving a great feel. And so, that is the big challenge. And I think the council should be spending a lot of time on that. The council spends a lot of time right now voting on individual projects or voicing up and down votes on individual projects. I'd like to see the council focus more holistically on building a healthy community, both for commercial space, residential space, real estate, or retail. And it takes a lot of effort to really build that big plan. We can't waste that time and effort on individual projects. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Paul. The next same question is Margaret Albacoga. You remember the question?
I think so, yes.
Okay.
What is the long-term vision of our downtown? And certainly I want to bring back the vibrancy of our downtown pre-COVID. And we actually have a plan. It's called the Downtown Precise Plan. And we have it as a goal, a council goal, to revisit that. And with that, we hope to be able to make some changes where we need to really bring it up to date as well. Things have changed since the plan was last looked at. And so that is on our list of things to do. We definitely, so we have a position called the Economic Development Director that's been vacant for a while now. And we are, our city manager is trying to fill that. But that person is in charge of working with the businesses. You know, we do have empty storefronts, so I think we need to go out and try to recruit new businesses. I'm certainly open to keeping Castro Street closed to vehicle traffic. It seems like it's working well. I know the residents like it. The businesses seem to be enjoying it too, and that might tie right into our transit center redevelopment. And then slower streets, making sure that we can have bikes and pedestrians continue to enjoy our.
Thank you, Margaret. Next, who do we have? John Lashley.
Okay. Yeah, so I think this question in some part hinges on what will be the action of the state government regarding local development and zoning control. And it really does remain to be seen what they'll do. We've seen, you know, we're in the middle of a very rapidly changing, turbulent time. Just a few months ago, none of us would have predicted we would be discussing these topics tonight. So as a city council member, you know, I would say we have two great growth areas in Mountain View and North Bay Shore and East Wisman. And we can rapidly develop there. And whatever local control provisions would come from the state, I believe we would retain local control, and I would advocate to do so on the basis of our continued deliberative growth in our growth areas. And I just want to echo that I agree with a lot of the other things we've been talking about. First floor should be open for commercial, and we have to develop Moffett as well. I'm in favor of keeping Castro Street a pedestrian mall as well. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, John. Next is Jose Gutierrez. I think he's.
Yep, I'm back. If you could give me a video,
okay.
that'd be great. If not, I'll just answer the question.
Yeah, I'll say, Jose, just pause for a moment while I get your video back here.
Sorry about that, everyone.
Okay, you can go ahead and turn your video on now.
Sure. There I am. Okay, cool. Okay, Robert. So in terms of the question, what I like to see, I've agreed with a lot of what's been said here already. But what I would also like to see is, I agree with revision for the precise plan in terms of downtown. We need to look at how it could be adjusted so it's better suited to help our current businesses based on the current situation. But I also think that because of the pandemic, not only do we need to do that, but we also have to factor in how do you recruit potential businesses to come in. And one way to do that is to limit the parking fee. And instead of using that 100,000 plus fee and charging that immediately to these businesses, I suggest we hold off on that. Let's wait and see until a year after to see how a business has been for these new participants, and either scale it back based on a percentage or waive it. But at the moment, that could immediately be used for salaries and benefits. Another thing that I like to see is the ability to close down Castro Street and add more greenery in that area if we're going to do that. More grass, more trees, more flowers, make it more flexible that way for the environment.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. Next, same question is Pat.
Hi, yeah.
Oh,
Well,
there you are. Okay.
I'm here. There's a lot of consensus that we've heard, and I would concur with just an awful lot of it. I think that this is serving as a great opportunity for the pedestrian mall and of Castro Street, and we'll learn a lot during this process that we can use for the permanent one. We have had redoing the downtown precise plan on the list for several years, and I understand it's coming up now, so that's great. It'll be important to make sure that that's a community-wide effort, so we get input from many stakeholders on that, and we have a good track record for doing that, but it is an important step for us to take. I also think that tying this in with the transit center is just vital. That's going to be a huge development, and we also have a new hotel that's going in down there, and tying all these new things into what already exists is going to be the trick, and it's going to be very vibrant.
Okay, thank you, Pat. We're on to Letty Siegel.
So I'm concerned that a series of office development proposals, such as at Wells Fargo, are going to transform downtown in a way that we don't like. So if I were on council, I would propose a moratorium on new office development. I want to see housing with ground floor retail and underground parking. I want to see that extended to Moffett Boulevard, which with the underpass at the pedestrian and bicycle underpass will become part of our downtown. So we've got a lot of opportunities to create a residential downtown that'll provide customers for the businesses, and people will be able to commute via the train to elsewhere or work nearby. Those of us who live in Old Mountain View love walking downtown, so the pedestrian mall, expanding it as much as we can, will make a hell of a lot of sense. So again, let's preserve our first 3 blocks of Castro, and let's see housing built instead of offices in the rest of downtown.
Okay, thank you, Lenny. Last is Lisa Matichek.
Thank you. So I envision a very vibrant downtown once we get through this pandemic. I'm hoping we return or exceed the vibrancy we had before. As has been mentioned, we are looking at updating the downtown precise plan, but we decided we were going to start with the core historic area and section that off and start with that before doing the entire precise plan, because I envision us preserving the historic buildings. The use within the building could change, like between different types of retail on the ground floor, but we want to preserve those historic buildings because that's the character of our downtown. It just really adds to it. I think it is important throughout the downtown area to have the first floor very active and no empty buildings. I agree with the tie-in to the transit center. And long-term, I do want us, or not even long-term, I want us to retain local control because we've done a really good job here in Mountain View. And the state should be telling other cities what to do, but not us.
Okay, thank you, Lisa. I like that last comment. Now I'm going to turn this back over to Robert for another round of grab bag questions, random questions.
Okay, so we'll start in the inverse order. We'll start with Alex. Let's see. The question is, what is more important, providing rent relief for people now during the pandemic or using the money to provide long-term affordable housing opportunities?
Yeah. So I want to iterate how there is absolutely no amount of rent relief funding that we could pull together to cover the amount of need that exists in Mountain View today. All right, I'm gonna give you a sense of what I'm talking about. I met someone who is renting an RV for $1,600 a month, works as a line cook here in Mountain View, and is only working for 3 hours a week because of the pandemic, and is also trying to support a son. That's an RV. There are many people in apartments living like that today. And unless we want to pony up millions and millions and millions of dollars, then that's not gonna work out. We live in a capitalist society, and there's nowhere in the fine print that says rental housing providers are exempt from market risk. What I believe we need to do is we need to actually, again, disallow eviction as an allowable civil remedy for the failure to pay rent because of loss of income during COVID-19. Again, everyone should get something, but no one should lose everything coming out of this pandemic, both as a public health and justice measure. Thank you.
Okay, Sally Lieber, do you want that same question or a different one?
I'll stay on this one because it's really incredibly important. And I think that we have to do both of those. We have to really look at what we can do to help people who live in Mountain View and the small businesses operating in Mountain View in terms of the pandemic. And then I think that we have to take strict measures to slow the rate of gentrification and the destruction of the homes that people live in. and make sure that we are ironclad in terms of protecting our mobile home parks, and that we increase the amount of affordable housing. 15% is not going to get us to the amount that we need, just even for the people who live here in Mountain View. So I think it's really a case of having to do both of those things and be creative in terms of possible financing for a co-op of homeowner ownership of mobile home parks.
Okay, thank you. Now over to Paul, a new question for you. Do you believe that more people will work from home after the pandemic? If so, how will this change life in Mountain View?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen some big employers like Cora in Mountain View already say they're going to work from home permanently. Their employees are already scattered out of our town. And so there's interesting contradictions here in what we're seeing in the market. We're seeing a lot of people and a lot of companies go work from home forever. A lot of reports from landlords that 10 or 15% of their units are now vacant in just a few months. But we're also seeing that companies may need actually more square footage going forward, and that they may need to space people out instead of putting them at 4-foot desks or very small confined open plan offices. They may want to completely replan their offices and consume more office space. And so contradictory trends that we have not yet seen exactly how it's going to play out in our city. This is what I talk about when I say that this is really a period of opportunity, that if we can move fast enough, if we can be competent in our responses to, this is a real opportunity to produce a city that works better for everyone. Thank you.
Thanks. Margaret, do you want that question or a different one?
I'll take that question. So I actually hope that telecommuting continues past COVID, and I say that from a climate change perspective. I serve on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and what we've seen is data that shows that telecommuting has, and you all know this, has obviously led to less traffic congestion, which means we have cleaner air. So we are actually engaging in a, you might have heard the Cut the Commute campaign, Cut the Commute in terms of single occupancy vehicles. And I led the city to adopt a resolution to sign on to that pledge. We're trying to get private companies to also sign on to it. And I've been meeting in this regional task force for this campaign. Every couple of Saturdays we meet and we talk about how to move this forward. There's some polling being done, and it's showing that employees want to work from home, maybe not every day, but once or twice a week. And so I expect it to be incorporated into future practices. Thanks, and I hope so. Thanks.
Okay, now a question over for John Lashley. What specific steps should the city of Mountain View take to support racial equality and justice?
Okay, thank you for the question. Right now, one of our biggest racial equity problems is our racially unbalanced police arrest record. I addressed it in my opening statement. Our Black and Latinx residents are arrested at rates 3 to 10 times the rate at which our white and Asian Pacific neighbors are arrested at. And we know why. It's a problem of over-policing and proactive policing. This happens because roughly half of our police deployments when an officer goes out are 911 phone call initiated, and half are officer initiated. And we have to reduce the second group, the officer initiated. We can reduce proactive policing by charging city staff to look at what functions our police officers do that we can put under civilian oversight, such as transportation enforcement, as well as code enforcement that officers do. And that'll be part of my advocacy in that way.
Okay, over to Jose. Do you want that question or a different one?
Sure, but can you repeat it for me, please?
Sure. What specific steps should the city of Mountain View take to support racial equality and justice?
Thank you. I think the first steps have already been made with the REI subcommittee, and our superintendent's part of that as well. It's the first step in trying to figure out how to build community partnerships between law enforcement and the community. There's transparency here, and at the same time, there's also a lot of questions. Now, I live in a neck of the woods where there's a lot of minorities. I'm on Latham Street in between two 7-Elevens. We've got a lot of Rasa here. I've got a lot of college graduates and postdocs and young tech workers and families who have been here for a long time. But one thing I do know, though, is that the statistics that have been brought up so far in terms of pullovers, that's just a stepping stone, right? You can't label that just as an issue. It's the stepping stone that you need to do a deep dive to find out the more specifics in terms of who did the stops, what were the makeup of the officers, were they white, were they black, what's going on? So sensitivity training, awareness to a deep dive in terms of the statistics, finding out where these pullovers are happening in what neighborhoods, whether or not they live here or not, that's also something that we have to factor in. If you do that, it's the first step in being able to have a conversation of race and equity and other items that we have to take on, either within the infrastructure of small businesses as well, or just how we treat one another in our social spaces as we live here in Mountain View and our implicit bias.
Okay, thank you. Now over to Pat. Tell us about someone in Mountain View city government who has been an inspiration to you.
Wow, there have been a lot of people in Mountain View city government who have been an inspiration to me. I think I would talk about Randy Suda. He did an excellent job in leading the city through the general planning process and the precise plan. He was wonderful at teaching all of the people who came in contact with him about the underlying principles for why various planning activities had to be done, and for really making us strive for very complete neighborhoods and multifaceted planning that had to do with transportation, design, and livability. So I think it would be Randy Suda. But there are a lot. If we all had to go through and choose one, I don't think we'd have any trouble coming up with 9 or 10 people.
Okay, going to Lenny. Do you want that question or a different one? You want a new one?
Yes, please.
Okay. What do you believe is the best way to battle traffic congestion and parking shortages in Mountain View?
In 1 minute. The first thing is to build housing near employment. This is our largest source of greenhouse gas emissions are people who are commuting on the freeways. Secondly, we need to improve the community shuttle in cooperation with Palo Alto and Los Altos along the San Antonio corridor. And third, I continue to advocate for the automated guideway, basically the elevated pathway between downtown and North Bay Shore. We need to get people out of cars, and the way to do that is provide good public transit. Caltrain hopefully will have the money to keep operating and provide non-peak service with electrification, but we need to get people from Caltrain to the workplace. So I really want the city to start up again the plan for an automated guideway. So transit's the answer, and of course you can always bike like I do.
Okay. And Lisa, do you want that question or a different one?
I'll take a new one.
A new one. Other than your campaign for council, tell us of a charity that you donated your time and money to in the last year.
A charity that I donated. Well, I volunteer at CSA on a regular basis. I have sorted produce, cleaned the kitchen because they were going to paint it, and so it had to be cleaned first. I have bagged the grab-and-go bags that they have for the holiday seasons. I've unpacked boxes. I was kind of surprised. I thought, I'm not sure they know that I'm, in my 60s, and they had me climbing up a ladder, grabbing these big boxes and emptying them into crates and then stacking them for delivery to schools. So I do volunteer regularly at CSA. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's the end of our second grab bag. I'll give it back to David to call people for closing statements.
Are you going to do closing statements, or you want to do can I do one more question here?
Well, we really don't. We said we're going to end at 8:30, and if you give closing statements, you'll only have 2 minutes to.
Right, I forgot. Okay, so we're going to run, you want to run reverse order or the?
Well, run in reverse order to be fair.
Okay. Okay, so closing statements, you get a minute, more or less. We could probably do a minute, I looked like. Well, 1 minute for closing statements, and we're beginning with Alex Nunez.
Awesome. Thank you a lot again to the Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association. Definitely working to have a neighborhood association to rival yours. So I'll just leave it at that. But again, I'm running because it is imperative that we have people in our city leadership and at all levels of leadership, quite frankly, who are always working to address the most material shortcomings of all our residents in our community. Now more than ever, we need to make sure that we are very proactive in reaching out to people who need the most help in our community, and really bringing our heads together and using all the levers of not just our experience as city leaders, but also of our city staff to make sure we address those issues. I am the candidate who is not only most committed to doing that, but also of, again, the younger generation who understands what's at stake. So I hope to earn your vote. Reach out anytime. I'd be happy to entertain a discussion.
Okay, thank you. And then we have next is Sally Lieber.
Well, I want to join Alex in thanking everyone from the Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association for keeping our association strong. And thank you to everyone who's participated. If we didn't get to your question, and the questions were quite interesting, I would love to hear from you. And so I put my contact info in the chat, and I hope that you'll make contact with me and let's talk. As I said at the beginning, I really love Mountain View. I think it's one of the best places on earth to be. And whether you came here this year or 25 years ago, this is your adopted hometown. And I want to see everybody participating in the decisions that are made, everybody being respected when they come to the table. So thank you so much for being a part of this forum.
Okay, thank you, Sally. And next is Paul Riley's.
Thank you. And thank you for everyone for spending your evening with us. It's individuals like yourselves that are interested in talking about, thinking about what builds a great community that will help our community become even better. It's clear today we don't have a great community. Rents are up, road quality is down, homelessness is up, and we have 10 to 15% of our renters leaving town. Those are not the results you'd expect from a city that's thriving. And so we need to do better. We need experience and fresh perspective. I've worked on a council in a city that worked much better and produced much better results. The great thing, though, is we have a great community with incredibly talented individuals that care and have great values. And so we can leverage that. We can build a community together that works better, that really lives up to our values. These are challenging times, and as a community, we'll get through to them together. And I look forward to working with you and everyone that's been listening tonight to build a better community together. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. And next we have Margaret Abekoga.
Thank you, and thank you again to everyone for having us this evening. I think Mountain View is a great place. We've been a leader on so many fronts, whether it's housing, transportation, or climate change. And it's been an honor for me to serve on the city council to do my part in trying to keep the city the great place that it is to work, play, and learn. And my priorities moving forward are to recover from this pandemic, focusing on economic development, especially working with our small businesses, our city budget. And that's something that I think I can bring my experience from the Great Recession back in 2009 as mayor to help us get through this recession, and climate change, as we've talked quite a bit about this evening. I try to be inclusive. I try to listen to all sides, knowing that we have a very diverse community. I'm collaborative, and I know when we need to compromise. And I think I've demonstrated my commitment, leadership, and experience over the years. I hope that I can continue to serve at this critical time, and I ask for your support once again. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret. Next, we have John Lashley.
Thanks again, David. Like I said, I'm a proud renter, data scientist, and activist in Mountain View. Mountain View is a great place to live and to work. And I'm running not just to keep it that way, but to make it even better. I'm 32 years old. Like I said, I'm a renter. And I think we need more young people and more renters on our city council, for one. I believe we would have had a fairer implementation of the CSFRA, our rent control law, if we had had a better balance of renters and homeowners on city council. Additionally, like I said, I'm running to prevent every eviction we can by increasing our rent and mortgage relief programs, give necessary aid to our small businesses to keep them in place, and more. I'm proud of my bold progressive platform, as well as my record of activism for protecting rent control and our mobile home residents. I'm number 2 on the ballot, and I humbly ask for your support. And remember, especially this year, vote early. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John. And next, we have Jose Gutierrez.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for spending your time with us tonight. As I've mentioned before, I think partnerships are the key to success in governance. You have multiple issues that affect us in different ways. One example that I like to point to as a successful partnership has been the ability for City Council, Fort Bay, Miramar Capital, and the school district to partner up to provide teacher housing, 144 units dedicated to our teachers in our district and staff as well, with 20 of those being set aside for city employees as well. So that's one example, plus our partnerships with Google and the Mountain View Ed Foundation and bridging the digital divide, making sure that every single one of our students has a Chromebook in order to participate in distance learning. Those are just a couple of examples I can point to that's been successful, and that's the type of attitude and consensus building and teamwork that we need to have in City Council. I believe now with the racial awakening, it's also an opportunity for us to be able to learn from one another, and I believe that increased diversity and participation and governing boards like a City Council are important. Now more than ever, with my experience in managing multi-million-dollar budgets, having dealt with as a functional school board that's now effectively working like a team, I can bring that in more to City Council, and I look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. And next, we have Pat Showalter.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity. I really enjoyed particularly getting to go through so many grab bag questions. I served on the council before, and I'm a long-term resident, so I know the community and I know the job. I have a record that you can count on. Mountain View's custom of civility on city council is so important to me because it makes us so much more effective. We're able to get many more things done than some of our neighboring communities because of this civility. I want a broad range of perspectives to be considered because that leads to the best outcomes for our community. You can see that we have a great group of candidates here, but what distinguishes me? Well, one, I'm a civil engineer. I know about infrastructure, land use, and environmental protection, and being collaborative and coming to consensus is a part of my skill set to get things done in government. I have a reputation for listening, very important to me. I'm progressive, persistent, and pragmatic, and I respectfully ask for your vote.
Okay, thank you, Pat. And on to Lenny Siegel.
Well, thank you all. Tonight's discussion stands in stark contrast to the presidential debate last night. We were civil, we agreed on
Yes.
most things, but there are issues that we disagree about. 3 of the candidates colluded with the landlords to try to undermine a rent control law this March with Measure D.
That's a lie.
The incumbents, gee, Sorry about
Yep.
that.
Yeah, it's a lie.
So thank you all. Tonight stands in stark contrast to the presidential debate last night. I know, was I muted part? Well, anyhow, there are disagreements among us. 3 of the candidates supported Measure D to undermine our rent control law. The incumbents have tried to pass Measure C, which would throw people out of town with no place to go. So please, to preserve Mountain View's cultural and socioeconomic diversity, vote for the candidates who are endorsed by the Housing Justice Coalition.
Okay, thank you, Lenny. Last, we'll have Lisa Matichek.
Well, thank you again for holding this forum. Let me leave you with a few thoughts about why I should be re-elected to the City Council. I bring leadership, financial skills, and current knowledge of the issues the city is addressing right now. I have great working relationships with my colleagues on the council at a time when working together is very much needed. I have a track record of being good for the environment, as evidenced by endorsements from the Sierra Club and the League of Conservation Voters. I'm also honored to be endorsed by many other organizations, including the Chamber of Commerce, the Mountain View Professional Firefighters, the Mountain View Police Officers Association, the South Bay Labor Council, Livable Mountain View, and the Los Altos Town Crier. But I'm most humbled to be endorsed by residents in every single neighborhood in the city because I have a track record of being good for your neighborhood. I'm number 8 on the ballot. I would be honored to have your vote. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. I think we're done except for wrapping up. I would just make, as I use my privileges here as the chair, there was a note from Laura Blakely about conflict of interest, which you might all want to consider because the state has pretty tough conflict of interest rules depending on where you live and what you can vote on in a city council. And it's a problem here. It wouldn't be some other places, but it's a serious problem here for some of our candidates and for some of our current city council members. So you might want to take a look at that. I won't go any further with that. I'd like to thank everyone for coming, the candidates for asking all of our questions, which we can't take credit for, and putting up with this. And for all the people listening in, and I hope that I might contact you separately to see if we can get some statements from you about your positions that we could post online or on our website, because it's kind of hard to get information out these days.
Maybe you can provide links to everybody's websites.
Yeah, so, or links to everyone's website. If we can get all this information, we can try and help, get people informed about who you are, what you stand for, what you think. Give them a chance to make a good decision on voting. But thank you all for coming. I think we've.
Yeah, and I'll just make one note.
Left.
There is an Old Mountain View Neighborhood Association website. This has been video recorded and will be posted there. And so thank you all for putting up with my amateur timing. I appreciate you all. We figured it out. By the end, I was really crushing it. So thank you all so much. And you can agree with everybody here, disagree, but people literally died for the right to vote. So go out and vote. Thank you all.
Yep.
Thank you.
Stay safe and well, everyone.